the 2015 Warriors, 2011 Dallas Mavericks, the 90 Bulls, pretty much any year with Michael Jordan, the Dream Team, and now the 2026 New York Knicks. These are what I feel like are some of the best championship teams of all time in the NBA. Now, obviously, there's some I left out, like you could throw in the Celtics of all the Bill Russell eras. You could throw in the Showtime Lakers. There's been a lot of great championship teams. I didn't name all of them, but there's some that stand above the rest. Not all championship teams are created equal. And there are some years that I legitimately do believe that maybe the best team in the NBA did not win that year. There's obviously the bubble year. I'm not going to get into that and trying to put asterisks on every championship team. But I do want to talk about the Knicks. I want to talk about this past NBA season as a whole, and specifically the finals. I got to say, I saw a stat somewhere, people were posting it around and sharing it on Twitter, that the last 8 years in the NBA, I believe, there's been a different NBA champion every season. Like, no repeats. Last 8 teams have won. Last 8 seasons, 8 different teams that have won the championship. And before that, you go back, you have all these years where it was Warriors for several years. The Cavs won it one year. You have, the Lakers winning it multiple years. The Bill Russell years winning it all those years. The Bulls winning it a bunch. We had the Spurs win a couple. We had the Heat win a couple with LeBron there, and even they won one with D Wade and Shaq back in the day. You have a lot of the same teams winning these championships over and over and again, and that's great for dynasties. That's fun to look back and compare dynasties and such. It's not fun as a more casual fan. My hardcore sport I love is football. That'll always be my number one thing. Live, breathe, and die football when it comes to sports. But I do enjoy basketball. I didn't start watching basketball until I was junior high school. I got into the games, and that helped me get into the sport. Really, it was the 2011 year when Dirk took the Mavs to the championship. The Mavs are my favorite team. I'll talk more about that later on. That year, and I wish I would have been a fan before. I'm not going to try and claim that I was a fan when that championship happened, but it was that year, that finals, that I started watching, and I heard talk about it, hearing about how great they were and how they were doing something special that got me into basketball. So while I don't claim that as a fan because I wasn't a fan, then I'm not going to try to pretend. Ever since then, it's been my number 2 sport right behind football. And admittedly, I don't watch every single game. I really don't even watch a lot of regular season games. The most games I've watched were a couple during the Luka era. There were some seasons where I'd watch, out of the 82 games, I might watch probably 20 or 30 of them. Definitely a lot of the primetime games against big rivals, the conference opponents or division opponents, stuff like that. And then, of course, when it came to the finals, or not the finals, the playoffs, I was watching every game possible. And even when my team wasn't in it, I'd watch every playoff game I could. And admittedly, there's been a lot of years where, especially those the 2010s, later in the year, mid-2010s to late 2010s, where, man, we had some pretty dog doo-doo teams on the Mavs, and it wasn't always fun, which is why I did root for the Warriors for a couple years. Not, like, as my favorite team, but it's just one of those, like, you want somebody to root for. You have someone you want to pull for, and there was many years where I thought that team was a lot of fun to root for. And, then when we got Luka, that was really what changed the game for me, and being, like, completely all in and thinking that, like, this is it. This is my ride or die favorite NBA player. I love Dirk, but I didn't get to grow up watching him. I watched a lot of his twilight years. For me, it's Luka. Now, you might be asking, what does that have to do with the 2026 Knicks? Well, one player I got to watch for a couple years that, unfortunately, he didn't get a huge starring role on the team was Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson was on the Mavs team for several years with Luka. In fact, they were drafted on the same night, hard to believe, first round and second round, in the same year by the same Mavs team. They had some great years together. I actually wasn't until Luka started to get hurt one year that Jalen came in and played very well. He had always played well before that, but just happened to make use out of less minutes. But I always loved him. He was always my number 2 guy behind Luka. I thought he played really well, and especially coming in and taking over for Luka. Obviously we weren't as good as we were with Luka on that team because it wasn't Jalen's team, it was Luka's team. But still played very well, made the most of his minutes, and I thought that was awesome. So I was pretty devastated when we had to let him go, and I get why, because he played the same position as Luka, and it was kind of hard to fit him on the same team, even though they had done it for a little bit. I think they could have worked something out, but I get it. And to be fair, I don't think he would have ever became the player that he is today if he had stayed and stayed second fiddle to Luka. I think he would have been a very good player, and yeah, I think they probably would be maybe closer to a championship, but that's just, and we wouldn't have had the Kyrie era here in Dallas without that happening the way it did. So, with all that said, I've never been a Knicks guy. The only Knicks guys I've liked in the past, Jeremy Lin. I think everyone liked Jeremy Lin at some point. Carmelo, I guess. I made fun of him a lot because for the last couple of years in New York, he was kind of washed. But, he's still a Knicks legend. And, you can even go back to, like, Stoudemire. J.R. Smith was when he was actually with the Knicks a little bit. He was all right. Again, didn't watch a lot of Knicks ball, so I can't really comment too much on it. So as far as Knicks players goes, when Jalen Brunson joined the Knicks, he was pretty much like automatically my favorite Knicks player, maybe up there with Jeremy Lin. I've been rooting for him the last couple of years, and this year, when they fully started to make a run, I thought, that's great, man. That's great. I think they're doing really well. The East didn't look as loaded as it had in past years. The Celtics went down, and then after that, from the time the Celtics went down, I thought, there's nobody that's going to stop this Knicks team. They ran through the Cavs. They ran through the 76ers. I think they only lost one, maybe two games to the Hawks. They pretty much ran through the Hawks. And for the most part, in a way, I guess you could say they ran through the Spurs. They beat them 4-1. The weird thing is that they were down 10 plus in every game. They came out slow every game. And some Knicks fans and even Spurs fans would say that, 4-1, it was a close game. It could have very easily been 4-1 the opposite direction, and Spurs could have, been the one bringing home the trophy. But it didn't go that way, and I feel like a large part of it was Jalen Brunson and just the attitude, the heart behind the team. Hart is, and yes, Josh Hart too. I'm sure he had something to do with it. But I was talking to Hart as in just resiliency, being down every game. There's a lot of teams that get down those deficits and they fold, they crack. They start talking in the media. They are not very resilient. They're not very strong. They're not well put together, and they crack. Now, what I was really pleased with the Knicks was that didn't happen. And another reason why I was rooting for the Knicks this whole time, one of my best friends has been a Knicks fan ever since I've known him in like middle school, like 10, 11, 12 years old, being a Knicks fan and growing up with Carmelo and Jeremy Lin and those teams that I had mentioned earlier. And they've had some pretty mid years. They've been a laughingstock a couple of years, been kind of a joke, been one of those like big market teams that always draw crowds, they make money, but they're never championship teams. And so this year, getting to not only cheer on Jalen, since we all know how Luka's not in Dallas anymore, and the Lakers, even him on the Lakers, I was rooting for him on the Lakers. They didn't make it very far, unfortunately. And I was rooting for Jalen on the Knicks. So I was like, well, after they got Luka and the Lakers got eliminated, the Mavs aren't in the finals. So pretty much I was rooting Knicks all the way. Not thinking it was going to happen, but thought, it could. I think they'll at least get to the finals because, again, the East was not very strong. And I thought, you know what? They'll at least go, and they'll probably end up playing the Thunder, the Spurs, and as long as they win a game, maybe two, they don't get swept, they keep it competitive, I don't think anybody will be disappointed in them. I think, they'll make New York proud. They'll put up a fight. And they did more than anyone could have imagined. Again, I'm not a Knicks fan, so I can't really speak on this and confirm this, but I feel like this is something that even the sentiment online, Knicks fans are almost kind of shocked that they knew they had something. They knew they had a good team and they were talented, but to go in and, in a way, like I mentioned, in some form or fashion, dismantle the Spurs. Wemby was not very good at all that series. I know someone can bring up the numbers and try to disprove me, but in the clutch, when it mattered, several of those games, he folded. And that's why he got clowned on in the media afterwards. And, people, they talked more about his quotes in the media post-game than they did what he did in that game. When you're the star player, yes, he's only been in the league a couple years, but when you're the star player, you put that team on your back. It doesn't matter if you've had the worst 3 quarters in your life, you step up for quarter 4. And that's what Jalen did. Jalen honestly didn't have a bad series. It's not like he was, playing bad, but you especially look at that last game he had where he led the team in scoring and had 45 points. He put the team on his back. Not the biggest guy, not the fastest guy, not the best shooter, not the best defensive player, but he ran the offense. He took it upon himself. He still was making passes, doing assists. He was still doing everything for his team, but he was letting it run through him, and we saw what happened. Clear as day, the Knicks were the better team. They did it right. It doesn't matter if the Spurs were winning at every half or they were winning every first quarter or they were coming out strong or if they had the biggest lead in all of the series games. It doesn't matter because when the clock was 0 at the end of the night, 4 out of the 7 games, they lost. They were short. And so it only took the Knicks 5 games to win. Now, I think it would have been cool to see them win in Madison Square Garden. And they didn't, but maybe that's for the best because they kind of went wild, and I think everyone knew they were going to go wild. They had been going wild all series, and I really want to speak out and say that, I am kind of ashamed that a lot of the stuff that was transpiring went the way it did in New York, and I'm not, saying that's okay. I think that's some really terrible stuff they did. I saw some pretty bad videos, and just because I think, it's to be expected. It's New York. They haven't won a championship in 53 years or whatever. I don't think that's an excuse. I've never understood the whole gimmick. I remember the first time I ever heard about this, and one of the worst offenders. I feel like to some degree it happens in most championship cities. There's some kind of trouble or chaos that brews, but you never hear about it on a big scale outside of, mostly bigger cities. One of them being Philadelphia when they won the Super Bowl in 2017, and they were throwing trash in the streets and burning the trash. They were knocking over the street lights and the lamp posts and breaking windows and doing robbery. It was, you would have thought it was the Purge out there. That's one of the reasons why I don't like Philly, and I'll talk about that another day. Least favorite sports team, least favorite sports city in the country for me. But I wanted New York to win, but I will speak out and say I think that the way a lot of the fans, and again, that's not all their fans. There's a lot of their fans that are very respectful, very kind, and that's the way with any fan base. You're gonna have your champs, your great stand-up guys and girls, and you're gonna have your tools, your dirt bags. So, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. I'm very happy for Jalen Brunson, very happy for that whole team, and the last thing I'll touch on is I briefly brought up earlier, one of my best friends. That's something I've never got. I've never had one of my sports teams win a championship. A Cowboys fan, Mavs fan, St. Louis Cardinals fan. St. Louis Cardinals, I guess technically, I think they won in, was it 2010, 2011, 2012? My family's all Cardinals fans. I remember watching the game when they won, but baseball's been my 3rd or 4th favorite sport. It's right there where it's neat. I want them to win. I want them to do good, but if they lose, I'm not getting down in the dumps and being, oh, shucks. So really heartbroken there. Definitely out of the 3 big major sports in America, baseball means the least to me. There's a sizable gap between them and then football and basketball. So for large part, Cowboys and Mavs have never won a championship while I've been a fan. Again, like I said, 2011, I'm not claiming for myself because that's what made me a fan, but I was not a fan while it happened, actively rooting and waiting for it. That would be like if I just became a Knicks fan after this finals and said, from now on, I'm a Knicks fan. That's awesome. The finals can make you a fan, but you know what I mean. So having never gotten to experience a championship for myself, and heaven forbid that the Arkansas Razorbacks are not going to win a championship in any, well, I say that they could win in basketball. They've been getting very close. Coach Cal has been doing great. I don't ever believe they're going to win a championship in football, especially with how college football is going. I think it's going down the dumps. It's near unwatchable for me. I think for college baseball, even though They're one of the perennial, like, overall most consistent and best franchises or best universities. They don't ever actually win the whole thing. They're always competitive. They're always in the conversation of a preseason number one or like top 5 team, but they don't actually ever make it all the way and win it, even though I think they've made it twice in the last decade and couldn't pull it off. So that's disappointing. So yeah, Arkansas is never going to win anything except for maybe basketball, and they'll win 50,000 track and indoor track and field and whatever, all those. But again, I'm not watching those and paying attention. So the next best thing, and this was a first for me, was getting to experience someone I was really close to. I have a lot of friends that, and that sounds a little conceited, I have friends with different sports team affiliations, football, basketball, whatever. But this was probably the first time where I had one of my best friends, not just any friend, one of my best friends, have their team that they have rooted on. Like, him and the Knicks are kind of like me and the Cowboys or me and the Mavs. Like, they're tight. They go back a ways. This meant something to him. He's been loyal, not a bandwagon. He's been a fan for a while. Getting to watch him witness, and I told him he's braver than me. I've said it before, if the Cowboys ever made the Super Bowl, I'm watching by myself, or at least with other Cowboys fans. I'm not watching with other fans of other teams that are going to potentially give me crap, because I already take football very seriously. Regular season games, I can be a little more lenient. I'll have fun. I'll watch with people. Playoff games, I kind of get a little more serious because it's win or go home. And you don't get a lot of those games. There's not very many. It's not every year you play in the playoffs. And much less a Super Bowl. I've never gotten to watch a Super Bowl with the Cowboys in it. Only been around since 2000, and that's right around when they decided to start sucking. And so if they ever make the Super Bowl while I'm alive, like I said, I'm only watching it with myself or with other Cowboys fans or it'd have to be very close friends that I know that, hey, if we lose, they're not going to freaking clown me and just give me a hard time. Like, they're going to be like, hey, man, I know that sucks. Like, that's a real thing. Any sports fan knows if having to witness heartbreak like that with your team is something tough. And likewise, if we win, they're not going to try to discredit the win or give me crap for that and downplay it like it's no big deal. I want people there that are going to really appreciate and enjoy the moment and help savor it with me. And so I'm very specific on like what kind of people I would be with. I get very annoyed and my patience goes out the window in playoff games. So I told him, I'm surprised you're watching with us. He was hanging out with us. We're having a game night with some other friends, him and his wife, and another one of my friends and his wife. And he was over, and I thought, I get it. We've had this plan, but look, we didn't know that this was going to come to this game. This was going to be the one they could potentially win it on. So if you don't want to, I understand. He still came. We had a good time, and we got to watch the end of the game. We stopped and just focused on that in that fourth quarter, and getting to witness his favorite team win a championship was almost like secondhand fulfilling. Obviously, it was better for him than for me. But witnessing that was really cool because that's something, as a sports fan, you realize, like, you're never guaranteed a championship team or a championship team. I can't speak. As a sports fan, you should always recognize and acknowledge that you could live 100 years on this earth and you are never guaranteed a championship from your favorite team. There are some people that live 100 years, sadly, come and go, and none of their sports teams have ever won a championship. And then you have people that just seem to make it lucky, and they're a kid growing up and you just start winning championships all the time. You're part of a dynasty. Now, obviously, you can bandwagon, but that's not as fun. It doesn't mean as much. It's one thing, not that I like my team to be bad or struggle, but when you have watched that, it's very different from someone that's been spoiled with success, So it's a little different, and watching that, and he knew that, and I know that, it's pretty cool to see that. And, that it's really hard, especially, like I said, the last 8 years they've had a different champion. So the odds and the likelihood of the Knicks being back and winning it all next year, very, very, very slim. It's not like in other sports leagues where many times when they start the rankings for the next year or the betting favorites, the championship team is often who's on top for the next year. Some years there's difference where, okay, big player is retiring, or they're having to shake up a lot of the team because of contracts and money, and the Knicks are going to have to do that inevitably. But even on ESPN's like way too early rankings, I think they were third or fourth, definitely behind. Of course, they have the Thunder at number 1, duh, and then the Spurs were at 2, and I think it either went Knicks Celtics or Celtics Knicks. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics win the East next year. The Pacers could be back if Halliburton plays. Or the Knicks could still win it. Heck, it could be it could be the Pistons this year because they also went out, and I think they were like the number one overall seed. So, or it could be somebody else. Maybe it's the Hawks, the Wizards. Probably not the 76ers because they never win the East. So, you never know. And I just wanted to yap about that for a little bit. I think that's really cool. I'm very happy for my friend. I think that's awesome. I'm happy for Jalen. I wish to anything that Luka could experience a championship. Yes, I understand that might be with the Lakers. It might not be. I never in a million years thought that Jalen would win a championship before Luka. I hoped that they would win one together for years. I thought, okay, well, maybe if Jalen ever joins another team, if they get another big star, and props to him, man. Props to him and the team. Like I said, I hope it comes for Luka, whether that's in LA. I have a pipe dream that maybe he comes back to Dallas at some point on his own doing now that we've got new ownership and new leadership. Maybe at free agency, we find a way for him to come back. I know he loved Dallas, but I don't know. Again, that's a pipe dream. And I'm rambling at this point. So I'll let y'all go. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about the Knicks. Let me know what you think about sports, basketball, hoops, ball. Let me know what you think.